Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel and welcome to my June wrap up and my mid-year stats video. Now I was going to separate out the stats, but you know, life being life, I'm just going to put them all together because you know what, this is where it fits because I'm going to give you some end of month stats, then I'm going to give you some mid-year stats. If you're at all unfamiliar with my current wrap up format, I will leave one of my past videos linked on the screen so you can get a sense of how this is going to go. But we are going to talk about some stats. We are going to talk about the books that I haven't talked about in any other video or I'm not talking about in any upcoming videos, and that's the flow of this video. So in June, well, if anyone's been following my channel for a while or keeping up with my updates, it's been a wild month, but we have got there. I read 43 things in June and a total of 10,198 pages. 8 of those books were rereads. Most of those rereads were picture books. There were a couple of novels in there, but nothing significant that I need to talk about really. On the screen, you are going to see an image of all of the books, all of the book covers, the books that I read this month. You're also going to see an extra graphic that I decided to put up this month, which is all of the rereads, so you can see which of the 8 were rereads for me. And the last graphic are all of the books that I have not talked about in any video that I have filmed at any point in the last month and a bit. So those are the books that we're going to talk about now, which is this neat little stack here. So I have 2 middle fiction books to talk about. There is The Potion Experiment by Elle McFadzean, which is a debut fantasy middle fiction novel by an Australian author. And this one is about Ange, who is a 13-year-old scientist. It's also about Eva, who is Ange, but just in a parallel world filled with magic. And the two of them end up by accident swapping bodies. And they can hear each other's thoughts in their heads as they're trapped in each other's bodies in their own worlds, which are completely different, and chaos ensues a little bit. The entire book is about the two of them trying to find a way to get themselves back into their own bodies, them helping each other out, having to find allies within the worlds that they're in, who can they trust to tell the secret, etc. There is magic, there is science, and it is a really fun read. The second middle fiction book is probably one of the best middle fiction books that I've read all year. So I've read a couple of really great ones this year that have stood out and are kind of in my top 3, so this is definitely in the top 3. It is Little Bones by Sandy Bigna. This is a middle fiction verse novel. It is about Bones, who is our main character. She is living with her grandmother after her brother's death, and her mother has left to go and work and earn money, but also to grieve the loss of her child as well, and she's having trouble doing that around Bones. So there is a lot of discussion around grief in the book. Bones is deeply fascinated with kind of the macabre. She loves bones and weird, creepy little things, and one day she discovers the full skeleton of a bird, and she collects it and brings it home. While she's sort of reflecting on where her life is and things like that, she accidentally brings this bird back to life with a spell that she doesn't realize is a spell, and it's all done through moon magic, and suddenly this bird is able to talk to her. And alongside this, Bones also meets a new neighbor. They become fascinated with Bones and with Bird when they discover that Bird can talk. And it is the 3 of them trying to find a way to reverse whatever has happened to Bird in order so that Bird can go back to just being Bones. But it is very much an allegory for not being able to let go of your grief, not being able to let go of the past, and being afraid to let go because you feel like that means that you're going to lose your connection to the person that you've lost, because Bones is deeply grieving her brother. She hasn't been back to the place where he died. It was an accident and he was killed, and that has deeply affected her. But the only way to help Bird sort of return to being just a skeleton is by retracing some of her brother's steps, because he holds the key to reversing the curse that she's placed on Bird, which the whole thing, like, I was tearing up in this book because it is very much about how can you process and how can you let go of some of that grief before you become someone that you don't recognize and that you start to question the things that you know to be true. So I love this. It was absolutely gorgeous. Then I did read With Love from Cold World by Alicia Thompson. This is a contemporary romance about 2 co-workers who work at a winter-themed theme park in Florida, and they have an antagonistic relationship towards each other. They always have. And this isn't helped when their boss asks them and her son to come together to come up with ideas for how to refresh Cold World. Suddenly they are forced into working with one another. There are situations where they have to work each other's jobs. She works in the main office. She does their accounting. Asa works all sorts of jobs around the park. He's been there forever and he basically knows the park like the back of his hand. And their boss's son is basically a nepo baby and is out for money. And so it's how Lauren and Asa really come to realize that they don't actually dislike one another. They've just had some experiences where they've gotten off on the wrong foot with one another and they've not been able to let that go. The audiobook for this was really fun. I enjoyed it. It's not a book that I feel like I'm going to keep though. I'm going to pass this on to one of my friends to read, but it was an enjoyable read. Then I read, totally randomly, another audiobook, and this was for a challenge for one of the bonus prompts for the 52 Book Club challenge, A Room with a View by E.M. Forster, which is, I don't know, is it considered a classic? I can barely tell you anything about this book because I found it that dry and uninteresting. And as much as I will DNF a thing, I'm also a completionist because I just wanted to have a book that was set in Italy at some point to complete this challenge. So I did just listen to it. It wasn't very long. I think it's about a young woman who is traveling around Italy and then something happens and she comes home, and it's about a guy that she meets over there. And I don't know, this is why you don't let me read anything that's not really been published in the last 10-20 years, because I don't really care. If that makes me uncultured, I don't care. And the last book that I'm going to talk about is Soul on Fire by Bauer. This is one of the few books of his that I haven't read, and I have to admit I've read the first chapter, which is quite gory and depressing because it's about a child who contracts a disease and dies very slowly. So like, be warned, like this is very graphic in terms of its description. And for some reason I thought we were going down a paranormal bent, and it's not. It's not that at all, because it's all about an Ebola outbreak in the Congo. And you have a local doctor who is working in one of the refugee camps there. And you also have a Navy SEAL commander who comes in with one of his teams because they're trying to extract someone. Their target escapes, and so he decides to stay because the doctor says that he can help him track this guy across the country to try and track him down in exchange for the rest of the SEAL team helping to evacuate the kids that this doctor is looking after. And yeah, like, it's romantic suspense. It does deal a lot with death and viruses and people getting sick. Not a single character in this book is safe from getting sick, so be aware of that. It's Bauer. I enjoyed it. Totally different setting for one of his books, but same kind of really fast-paced action spent story. So yes, that's another Bauer book checked off my list. I think I have 2 or 3 maybe left now, which is kind of sad. All right, so those are the books. So I'm going to give you some mid-year stats, and then at the very end of this video, I'll also do a little video of my spreadsheet and all of the stats, and you can have a closer look at how those are all going. They might be slightly skewed because I think I've got a little bit of data in there for July. So I have read a total of 324 books so far this year. I've had 43 rereads in that chunk as well. So there's not an insignificant amount of rereads. I've read 69,625 pages. Since the start of the year, I have acquired 137 books. I have read 98 of them and DNF'd 6 of them. So I don't have that many unread books. And when I come to my TBR from Hell bingo board, you'll see the percentage of what I've read, which is close to my goal for the year. Anyway, my most read genre is, unsurprisingly, romance. I have read, 144 romance books. My top 3 subgenres of romance are contemporary romance, of which I've read 59 books, paranormal romance, of which I've read 40, and I've read 25 hockey romances. So they're my top 3 subgenres. In terms of savings for books, so this is something I've started tracking this year just out of interest through using my local library system and Libby, which is, I'm mostly using it for audiobooks. I do occasionally read an ebook through them. And the way that I work this out, if you haven't seen any of my other stats videos, is that I just find the recommended retail price of the audiobook and I just use that as my savings. Because if I was going to purchase it, this is what I would pay for it. So I've saved $645.06 from using my local library. Through my Kindle Unlimited subscription, which I've talked about this before, I have it all calculated so that it automatically subtracts the total that I will spend across the year in terms of payment for the subscription service. So at the end of last month, I think I essentially broke even with what I would pay for the subscription versus what I'm saving. So now all of the money that I'm talking about is the actual amount that I've saved for the entire year, and that is $201.57. The other thing that I'm tracking is I do receive a lot of ARC or review copies, a lot of the physical copies from publishers, and they're usually kids' titles, but I also do get a lot of things through NetGalley, so I've started tracking the recommended retail price of those books, and this one just blew my mind. I've saved $1,086.23. So not a small amount of money saved. I've still spent a significant amount of money, because of course I have, but it could have been a lot worse. So we're taking the wins. Okay, so then the bingo board from Hell update. I have read 68.2% of my pre-2025 TBR, so I'm trying to get to 100% read of those before the end of the year. So I'm over 50% of the way through that at 50% of the way through the year, so I'm happy with where we are. I have read 47 of 75 audiobooks. I've uploaded 8 of 12 try-chapter videos for the year. I have finished or caught up on 6 series out of the now 15 total that I'm trying to read through the year. I did get a art copy of Pucking Strong by Emily Rath, so I was able to catch up on the Jacksonville Rays. So that has taken a series off that list that I have now updated. I did read 80% of my TBR this month, which is an improvement from last month. I've read 46 out of 50 middle fiction or young adult titles. I have read 73.9% of the 75% target I set myself for my 2025 physical TBR. So this is just to keep me accountable and to keep me reading through the books that are coming in so they're not sitting there and so that I don't have a giant ass pile of books at the end of the year. I've read 13 out of 20 non-fiction titles, and I'm still sitting at 48 books read for my 52 book club challenge, for the main challenge. There's 2 more challenges that I can do, but there's one that I cannot do until I hit September. So now it's just a kind of a waiting game until I can finish those challenges. I am participating in their summer reading challenge though, which is called Connections, where you can't pick a book until you've read the previous book because the next prompt relates to the previous book that you've read. So I am, I think, up to prompt 6 in that. And then the other challenge that I'm doing this year is Izzy and Shay's Read What You Own challenge, which I suppose what I should probably have done is pulled up the stats from the start of the year. So this is just a challenge to read down what you already own, and everyone does it slightly differently. So I'm just tracking my physical TBR and my ebook TBR. Maybe next year I'll tackle the audiobook TBR, but audiobooks I'm not really worried about. And at the start of this year, I had 32 unread physical books on my TBR and 391 unread ebooks on my TBR. Now, the physical TBR list has gone up, but considering I've added 137 books from the start of the year, it is not as bad as you would think. So I have 50 physical books unread on my TBR at the moment, and I have 224 unread ebooks. And that's because I've either been reading down my books or my ebooks, or I've actually been doing try-chapters and clearing things out. I've also just periodically gone through, and I try to do this fairly regularly. I do periodically go through and just try and see whether I still want to read any of these books, because when you pick up books randomly, sometimes you just look at them again and go, I'm no longer interested in you, and I clear them. So that's how that number has dropped so rapidly. All right, the last thing I will do is pop in a little overview of my stats spreadsheet so that you can have a look at all of the figures and facts and things like that. And that is my June wrap up and mid-year stats update. So hopefully you found it enjoyable if you like these kinds of things. In the comments, feel free to let me know if you've read any of these books, or feel free to let me know what your favorite read of June was. I haven't quite decided yet what my favorite read was. I haven't thought that deeply about it, but feel free to share what your favorite book is. I would love to know. Otherwise, feel free to leave me any kind of graph or maths related emoji, because you know we've talked stats. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.